I'm Tara, and I am a master gardener here in East Tennessee. I'm also a mother to four, and when I started my first raised vegetable garden, I had four kids under 5 years old, and I was working, and I had absolutely no time or sleep. So today I'm going to walk you through the exact steps you need to start your first garden if you want to get started right away. Okay, so step number one is to know your place. And by your place, I mean both where you're gardening and your own heart. So let's start with your own goals. Why are you gardening? Are you gardening for production? Maybe you're worried about our food systems, or you're unhappy with the food you can find at your grocery store, or you live in a food desert. You're growing for production to grow as many calories as you can from your garden. Or maybe you are growing for perfection. You want the perfect Instagram worthy garden because you want to share it online and you really care about aesthetics. If so, you're probably also thinking about growing flowers, which is awesome. I do that too. You can absolutely incorporate flowers in your raised bed vegetable garden. The reason I garden though is not for production, it's not for perfection, it's for peace of mind. I love having my hands in the soil. I love being outside. I love watching a plant grow and change. And I love seeing my kids harvest veggies that they would never normally eat from the garden and eating them standing right there, getting their hands dirty. I absolutely love it. It just makes me so happy that is 100% of the reason why I garden. So that means I'm not concerned with production. I'm not concerned with perfection, which is good because I don't have a lot of time to worry about perfection. I created a really simple garden checklist that will walk you through each of these steps and give you a link to all of the resources I'm about to mention here. So you can go grab that in the description for free and then have a path to follow, a checklist to follow. And I know it can be overwhelming, but I want you to just start with the first step, do it before you move on to the second step. I've given you links to everything you need to know, so you could do it as soon as this weekend. Okay, so we've changed position because my neighbor came out and my garden is in the middle of the suburbs. I have neighbors on all sides and no privacy fence. So the next part of knowing yourself, knowing your own heart, is knowing what vegetables and fruits you and your family really love. What are you going to eat? Do not grow what everybody else tells you to grow. Grow what you are going to eat. It's going to feel the most rewarding when you're growing things you already eat, and you're going to see the biggest savings if you're actually replacing some of the things on your grocery bill. Now, I will tell you, starting your first garden bed is going to be more expensive than your grocery bill, but over time, it will replace a lot of your groceries, especially if you eat a lot of vegetables already. Now, one of the things I found with my clients here locally is a lot of them actually aren't even looking to grow vegetables, that they're looking to grow fruit, like blueberries and raspberries and strawberries, and that's an entirely different thing. You can absolutely put strawberries in your raised bed garden, but you do not need a raised bed garden in order to grow blueberries and raspberries. We can do a whole video on that if you want, but that's not really what we're talking about here. Write down the fruits and vegetables that you actually eat that you're most interested in eating. Now, the next part of knowing your place is to know your climate. Now, we're going to do a little research here. It's going to take maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and then you'll have done it and you'll know it forever. Make sure you write it down in your workbook that's linked below. So you need to know your climate. And the thing about your climate is you will definitely hear about growing zones. That's not really applicable to what we're doing here. It doesn't matter what zone you grow in unless you're growing perennials. What we're talking about, those annual vegetables, what matters is when is your last frost date. I have included a link in the workbook where you can look up the site I like to tell you your last frost date because it's really specific. It will tell you when is there a chance less than 10% that it's going to frost in your area. That's when you plant out your summer vegetables. So in my area, it's April 28th. If you're watching this when I'm uploading it, it is probably past your frost date if you are in the lower 48 United States. If it's not, then wait to plant the kind of vegetables we're going to talk about. There are absolutely frost tolerant vegetables, but that's like planting a spring garden or a fall garden. We'll talk about that in an upcoming video when that season gets closer. For right now, we're talking about your summer vegetable garden. So you need to know your last frost date, and then you also need to know your first frost date. That means when is it going to frost to begin winter? Is it going to be September, October, November? When is that date? Once you have those two dates, you're going to figure out how many days is in between that. That's your frost-free growing season. And some vegetables take 50 days to produce before you can harvest them. You probably have enough time to do that wherever you live, but some take 120 or 170 days to harvest. And so you want to make sure you have enough frost-free days to grow what you want to grow. And if you're watching this in May or later, you want to make sure that you still have it left in the season. So something like a winter squash, like pumpkins or loofahs that you wait to dry all the way out, you may already be out of time to start that if your frost date is really soon. So that's why you need to know how many days you have left until your last frost, so you make sure you have a long enough growing season to grow what you want to grow. And you can find that on every seed packet. I'll put an example on the screen. Almost every seed packet tells you how many days until your first harvest, and so that's how long you need in order to grow that plant. Now, I found it really helpful to also know my climate in knowing average rainfall. This is a little nerdy, but if you look at the average rainfall for the past few years in each month, it will help you figure out when you need to spend more of your time watering your garden and when you don't have to worry as much. Of course, every season is different, and some years, like last year, we had a drought in June, which is very unusual. But for us, our driest months are actually September and October. And so that's really good to know, because if I'm growing a pumpkin that needs all of September and October to ripen, I need to make sure that I'm not letting it dry out. So if you look up the months that you get the most and the least rainfall and your average rainfall, that will help you figure out your watering schedule. So I would just write that down. What is the months that are the driest and the months that are the wettest within your frost-free growing time. Now, the last step to knowing your place is to actually look around where you want to have a garden. And I really recommend that you set an alarm on your phone to tell you at 8 or 9 o'clock, at noon, at 2 p.m., at 5 p.m., to look at where you're thinking about putting your garden and ask yourself, is it in full sun? Does it have the shade of a tree? Does it have the shade of a house or a building? Or is it getting sunlight? For the vegetables that we're talking about growing in your first summer vegetable bed, they're going to be tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, cucumbers. Those all need at least 6 hours of direct sun, but they will do even better if you have 8 or more hours. Now, if you live in the South like I do, it absolutely does not hurt your tomatoes and peppers and all of that to get some afternoon shade, because that's the hardest part of the day. But for right now, you just want to make sure you have enough sunlight hours to grow that. If not, then you need to look at where in your yard does have it. You probably have a couple places in your yard that are flat that you're thinking about putting your garden. Track if the sun hits that. When we moved into this house, there was a weird area that had a chain link fence around it. I don't know if it was a dog run or what. And I thought, oh, that's where they put the vegetable garden, to keep out critters. But just looking around, I soon realized that there are a lot of old trees shading that. And that area only got a couple hours of direct sun a day when the sun was directly overhead. So it wouldn't serve me as a garden. So you really want to make sure that you're looking at the area and make sure it gets enough sun. So that's it for step 1. If you've done that, you've done most of the planning work you need to do for your garden. So congratulations. If you've written that down, you're good to go. You will now use this information that you gathered for every year for the rest of your life that you garden. Now, step 2 is the most physically challenging step, and that is to get your garden ready, to get your space ready. You can do this relatively inexpensively, and you can do this relatively quickly, but I want to tell you what your 3 options are and what I recommend for a very quick start garden. So your first option is to grow directly in the ground. We have clay soil here, and clay soil is very full of nutrients. So although it's hard to work in the beginning, it is really great for growing things directly in the ground. However, if you have a lawn where you want to grow and it's not already a garden bed, it's going to take some work to turn it into soil that will help your vegetables grow. There are 2 ways you can start an in-ground bed. The way that I like to do it requires you lay down cardboard that isn't treated, it's not shiny, it doesn't have any tape on it. I'm a Girl Scout cookie mom, so I have the cases that the Girl Scout cookies come in that are perfect for this. You lay it out a couple of layers deep, you wet it really well, and you put several inches of compost directly on top of it. And if you live in a wet climate like I do, that cardboard will break down, it will kill the grass underneath it. You will have a very rich, wonderful bed that you can garden into in a month or 2. So if you want to start your garden this weekend, the cardboard and compost thing is not the way to go. Also, compost is not inexpensive. So if you're going to do a small area, I think this is a great way to do a small area. If you're just getting started, you probably don't have your own compost pile yet, and you're probably buying compost in, and that's not any more inexpensive to do the cardboard and compost method than the other methods we're going to talk about. If you want to plant in bed right away, you can till the soil. If you know somebody with a tiller, or you can rent a tiller, and you till up the area, and then you still need to add some compost into it if you're going to be planting annual vegetables in it this year. You don't need to add as much, maybe a couple inches into the tilled up soil, and then you can plant directly into that. However, a tilled bed is going to have more weeds and more of your grass growing through, especially if you, like me, have Bermuda grass. It's going to survive the tilling process, and actually every place the root was broken is going to produce a new growth of Bermuda grass. And so tilling is really, it's a fast way to get started in ground, and it might be the most inexpensive way, but you're going to pay for it in the time you spend weeding. And it's up to you if you have more money to get started or you have more time to get started. If you are trying to do this with small kids at home while working full time, I'm not going to recommend the tilling method. It also destroys the soil life, and it takes a while to build back up. Adding the compost will help that, but you won't have as healthy of a garden bed for a few years. Now, the second method, which is both the fastest right now and the least time intensive moving forward for you managing your garden, so this is what I do with all of my consulting clients, is starting a raised bed vegetable garden. And for that, you're going to buy the raised bed. I've included links in the guide of some inexpensive to more expensive options depending on your aesthetic and your style. You're going to buy the raised bed, and then you're going to fill it with a topsoil compost mix. Now, my local composting company sells, they call it Bed Builder Mix, and it is a mix of topsoil and compost. You can also buy, if you're in the South, Soil Cubed, which has a raised garden bed mix as well. That's a mix of topsoil and compost that you can add to. Filling the bed, depending on the size of the bed, is going to probably cost over $100, probably in between $100 and $300, depending on where you live and what access you have. You can go to some place like Lowe's and buy bags of raised garden bed mix, but it is going to be much more expensive to buy the bag. Plus, you're also going to have all that plastic waste of opening each bag. So I'd recommend getting it delivered from a local composting place if you have one. In my checklist, I will include my local place that I use, and I will also use Soil Cube, which delivers all around the Southeast, including Tennessee. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I just know that they deliver really high quality soil. Okay, so after you've decided on an in-ground bed or a raised bed, then you actually need to do it. You need to either till or lay down cardboard, get your compost, get your bed. Your bed will arrive, you'll fill it with your topsoil and compost mix, then you are ready to add your plants. Do not worry about plants until you have your bed ready to go. And I built my first 4 garden beds. They were 3x3. I bought them in a kit. I'll be sure to link to them in the checklist. I built those in a weekend and filled them. I had a big pile of dirt delivered, and I filled it. It was the topsoil compost mix. And me and my dad did many wheelbarrows and filled that right up. I want to warn you that you might think you want a really tall raised bed, but the taller your raised bed is, the more you're going to have to fill it with. So just keep that in mind. I have helped a friend wheelbarrow compost up a hill to her garden, and she got the tall garden bed, and it took us forever to fill it. So just keep that in mind. The shorter your bed, the less money and time you're going to spend filling it. Okay, so after you have your bed, you're ready to get your plants. The thing to know is that some plants grow better from starts that you get from the store or from a friend who started seeds, or you could start them from seed earlier in the season, and some do better called direct seeded, where you put the seed directly in the garden. So I'm gonna give you a list of vegetables that do best from seed and those that do best from plants. And again, we're talking all about summer vegetables because it's not the season for your spring or fall vegetables. If you are watching this closer to your first frost date or your last frost date, then you want a spring or a fall garden. I'll do a video all about that when we get close to that season. So from seed, you're going to start cucumbers, zucchini, squash, summer squash and winter squash. Winter squash are the squashes that store better, that have a hard shell, like pumpkin or butternut or acorn squash. You can also start beans directly from seed. They just go into your garden so easily. The vegetables you want to buy from plants are tomatoes and peppers and eggplant. These take a lot longer to grow from seed, and so in most climates you'll want to have them already started from seed before you plant them into your garden, whether you do seed starting, which is another whole video, or whether you buy them from your local garden center or someplace like Lowe's and Home Depot. I would recommend that you don't go with a big box store, because the plants have traveled from far. They were probably grown someplace else, not in your climate, and they've been fertilized heavily. They also might have had pesticides applied to them, other things you don't want to bring into your garden. So I really recommend, if you have a local garden center, get your plants there. If you don't, or you're not sure, you can reach out to your local extension agent. If you just type in your state and extension office, then look for the one that's closest to you. Your extension agent runs the Master Gardener program, which is how I'm familiar with them, but they also have so many resources. So whether you're looking for the best place to get your compost, or you're looking for plants that do well in your area, or you're looking for a place to source the plants, your local extension agent will be able to tell you a lot about it, or they'll put you in touch with your local master gardeners and they can help you. They usually do plant sales and have a lot of extra plants like I do from seed. People get freaked out at this stage and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't start seeds, that's too hard, or I can't, all my plants always die. And let me just tell you, plants want to live. Plants can survive so much. So get yourself some plants, get yourself some seeds, put them in the ground. They want to survive. If you followed my previous step by either adding compost to your in-ground bed or by doing a topsoil compost mix in your raised bed, then your plants are going to already have a great start. So the next step is to get your plants and your seeds and then to plant them. It's very simple. You follow the instructions on the plant label or on the seed package, and you just do what it tells you, and then you water it in. Make sure you water it that day. And then I would also mulch it. I use garden straw. You don't want hay because that has grass seeds, but I use garden straw to mulch the bed. You can also use leaves if you have dried leaves from your yard. You can also use dried grass clippings. So when we mow the lawn, we have a bag on our lawnmower that collects it up. We lay it out and it dries, and then I use it as a mulch on the garden bed. You might add some grass seeds to your garden bed that way because there might be some mixed in the grass, but it's not been a real problem for us. But by mulching it, you're covering the soil so weed seeds can't germinate, and you are also holding in the moisture so you don't have to water as often. Once your seeds are planted, you want to make sure that they get about an inch a week every week. So you are going to become so familiar with your weather app because you're going to check it all the time to see if it's rained. If it does rain, most weather apps, if you scroll down, they'll tell you how many inches it rained. And if you haven't hit an inch over the last week, you're going to want to go out and water your bed. Water directly into the soil, not on the plants, because the plants soak up the water from the soil, not from their leaves, really. Plants want to survive. So that's the last step. That's the fourth step, is to tend, water your garden, and then the last step is to harvest. As your plants start growing and producing, you want to make sure that you keep harvesting, even if you don't know how you're going to use them, because the more you harvest from a plant, the more it will produce. So don't be afraid of harvesting. Your peppers, your eggplants, your tomatoes, harvest it all as soon as it's ripe. You can read the seed packet to see when it's ripe, or you can Google that particular variety to see what it looks like when it's ripe. Some peppers turn green when they're ripe, some turn red, some turn orange or purple. You want to make sure you're waiting for it to be ripe, and then you're harvesting it really regularly, which is absolutely the best part of gardening, is getting the actual payoff of the fruit and veg. Now, everything I've said might sound like a lot, but let me reassure you that it is doable in a couple hours a week. You could start your garden in a weekend. Once you figure out where you're getting the soil and you order the raised bed and you go to the store and you get your plants, you could do this all in a weekend. I've done it with clients in one day. So it's entirely possible to get your garden started this weekend, and after that, care for it. An hour or two a week is plenty to keep your garden thriving, especially if you started with just a bed or two. This goes back to why you're gardening. I don't recommend most people starting with a production style garden where they're gardening a huge amount with a ton of plants their first year. It'll just be overwhelming. You'll have a lot of loss and it'll be disappointing. Whereas if you start with 2 to 4 beds, you're going to get some harvest of something. Something's going to survive. You're going to have some successes. You're going to learn a lot, and you're just going to enjoy the process. This is a process you will do for the rest of your life. You will learn every year for the rest of your life. So don't be discouraged that you don't know enough already. If you are excited about starting your garden this weekend or in a coming month, or you want to improve your garden and get better, check out my garden checklist. It's linked below. It's got links to all the resources I mentioned to look up all of the things you need to look and everything we've talked about here. And if you want to see my garden, the first year I started it, check out this playlist, which is from the very first year I gardened.